My Brother's Peculiar Chicken by Alejandro Roces. My brother had a very peculiar chicken. It was very peculiar because no one could tell whether it was a rooster or a hen. My brother claimed that it was a rooster. I claimed it was a hen. We almost got pinched trying to settle this argument. The whole question began early one morning while Kiko and I were driving the chickens from the cornfields. The corn had just been planted, but the chickens were scratching the seed out for food. Suddenly, we heard a rapid flapping of wings. We turned into that direction and saw two birds fighting at each other at far end of the field. We could not see the birds clearly as they were lunging at each other in a whirlwind of feathers and dust. Look at the rooster fight. My brother pointed excitedly at one of the roosters. Why, if I had a rooster like that, I could get wind in the cockpit. Let's go catch it, I suggested. No, you stay here. I will go catch it, Kiko said. My brother slowly approached the battling chickens. They were so busy fighting as they did not notice him as he approached. When he got near them, my brother dived and caught one of them by the legs. It struggled and squawked. Finally, Kiko held it by both wings, and it still stood up. I ran where he was and took a good look at the chicken. Abba, it's a hen, I said. What's the matter with you? My brother asked. Is the heat making you sick? No, look at its head. There's no comb or wattles. No comb or wattles? Who cares about combs or wattles? Didn't you saw it fight? Sure, I saw it fight, but I still see it is a hen. A hen? Have you ever seen a hen with spurs like this? Have you ever seen a hen with feathers like this? Kiko and I could not agree on what determines the sex of a chicken. If the animal in question should have been a carabao, it should have been very simple. We just look at the animal's trait, at the animal itself. We wasted no time examining its tails, hooves, or horns. We just look at the animal's trait on its face. If it has a brass on its nose, then the carabao is a bull. But chickens are not like carabaos, so the argument went on in the field and the whole morning. At noon, we left to have our lunch. We argued about it on the way home. When we arrived at our house, Kiko tethered the chicken on a peg. Then, the chicken flapped its wings and then crowed. There, my brother exclaimed triumphantly. I suppose you're going to tell me now that carabaos fly. I do not care if they're crows or not. That chicken is a hen. We went to our house and the discussion continues during lunch. It's not a hen, Kiko said. It is a rooster. It is a hen, I said. It is not. It is. That's enough, Mother interrupted. How many times must Father tell you boys not to argue during lunch? What's the argument all about this time? We told Mother and she went out to see the chicken. This chicken, she said, is a binabae. It is a rooster that looks like a hen. That should have ended the argument. But Father also went out to see the chicken and he said, no mother, you're wrong. This chicken is a binalaki. It is a hen that looks like a rooster. Have you been drinking again? Mother asked. No, Father answered. Then what makes you say that this rooster is a hen? Have you ever saw a hen with feathers like this before? Listen, I have handled a battling chicken since I was a boy, and you cannot tell me that this thing is a hen or a rooster. Before Kiko and I realized what had happened, father and mother were arguing about the chicken all by themselves. Soon, mother cries. She always cries when argues with father. You know well that this is a rooster, she sobbed. You're just being mean and stubborn. I am sorry, father said, but I know a hen when I see one. Then, father put his arms around mother and called her corny names such as my Reina Elena, my Maria Clara, and my Madonna. He always did that when mother cries. Kiko and I felt embarrassed, so we left our house without finishing our lunch. I know who can settle this argument. Tinyanteng Tasyo. Tinyanteng Tasyo was the chief of the village, and I did not think that the chief of the village was the right person that could answer a question or can solve a problem. For the chief was the barrio philosopher. By this I mean he explained his strange views with even stranger reasons. For example, the chief frowned on cockfighting. Now, many object to rooster fighting by being their reasons either that they think cockfighting is cruel or that they think gambling is bad. Neither of this was the chief's reason. Cockfighting, he said, is a waste of time. It has been proven that one gamecock can beat another. The chief, however, had one merit. He was the oldest man in the barrio, and this did not make him an ornithologist. We must admit that everything said always carries more weight when it is being said by a man with gray hairs. When Kiko suggested consulting the teniente, I voiced no objection. I accused him to let him be the arbiter of our dispute. So, Kiko untied the chicken and we took it to the chief. Teniente Tasyo, is this chicken a male or a female? That is a question that could only concern another kind of chicken, the chief replied. Kiko and I were taken aback by this replication, but Kiko obstinate, so we tried another approach. Look here, Teniente, he said. My brother and I had a special interest in this particular chicken. Please give us an answer, just a yes or a no. Is this chicken a rooster? It does not look like a rooster that I have ever seen before, the chief replied. It is a hen then, I said. It does not look like a hen that I have ever seen before. Kiko and I were dumbfounded. So, we went silent for a long period of time. Suddenly, Teniente Tasyo asked, have you ever saw an animal like this before? Kiko and I should admit that we hadn't. So what makes you say that this animal is a chicken? Well, what is it then? Kiko asked in turn. It could be another kind of bird. Oh God, no, Kiko said. Let's go to town and talk to Mr. Cruz. He would know. Mr. Cruz lived at the nearby town of Alcala. He studied poultry and husbandry at Las Bañas, and he operated large egg farms. When we got there, Mr. Cruz was taking a siesta. So, Kiko released the chicken on his yard. The other chicken would not associate with ours. And not only that, they ran away from it as they could. But they did not even seem to care to which sex it belonged. And embarrassed by this, our chicken chased and disgraced several polyps. There, my brother exclaimed, that should prove to you that this chicken is a rooster. It does not prove anything. It only proves that it has a rooster instinct. As soon as Mr. Cruz was up, we caught the chicken and took it to his office. Mr. Cruz, is this chicken a rooster or a hen? Mr. Cruz examined the bird curiously and then said, I didn't know. I could not tell at one look. I did not run across a baby like this before. Is there any way you could tell us? Well, sure. Look at its feather on its back. If it is round, then it is a hen. If it is pointed, then it is a rooster. The three of us examined the bird, and shockingly, it had both. Very peculiar, said Mr. Cruz. Is there any other way you could tell us? Kiko asked. Well, yes. I could kill it and examine it inside. No, I didn't want it killed, Kiko said. I took the plump creature into my arms and then said, I took the plump creature into my arm, and we walked back through the barrio. Kiko was silent most of the day. Suddenly, he snapped his fingers and then said, I know how I can prove to you that this thing is a rooster. How, I asked. Would you believe that this chicken is a rooster if it is fight in the cockpit and it wins? If this chicken of yours can beat one gamecock, I would believe anything I said. Well, then he said, we will take it to the cockpit this coming Sunday. So that Sunday, we took the chicken to the cockpit. Kiko looked around for a suitable opponent and finally picked on Red Rooster. I recognized that Red Rooster as a veteran of this pit, as it once graced the cover of the Gamecock magazine Pintakasi. And it was also the Chanticleer who escaped from the forest and lured all the chickens from the nearby farms. Raising its serpent-like head, the Red Rooster eyed the chicken arrogantly and jiggled its sickle feathers. This scares me, for I know that if one gamecock is inbreeding mode, it is twice ferocious. Do not put your hand on that rooster, I told Kiko. That rooster is not a native chicken, it was brought from Texas. That does not mean anything to me, Kiko said. My rooster will kill it. Do not be a fool, I said. That rooster killed more chickens than the cholera. And that rooster is a killer. There's no chicken in this province that could take its gaps. Just pick, for a less formidable rooster. Kiko would not listen. Then the fight was made, and the rooster or the two birds were up for the killings. Steel grafts were attached on their left legs. Kiko bet 8 pesos on his chicken and I only bet 2. The odds were 2 to 1. Then I said, Tacit prayer to Santa Rita de Cassia, patroness of the impossible. Then the fight began. The two birds released at the center of the arena. The Texan rooster was scratching the ground as if it were digging a grave for its opponent. Moments later, the two fighters confronted each other. I expected that our chicken would die of fright. Suddenly, a strange thing happened. A love-sick expression was seen on the red rooster's eye, and then it did a love dance. Naturally, this was a very surprising incident to one and all. But to those whose take on the red rooster, or Texan rooster that is, for it was the evidence that the Texan rooster was thoroughly infatuated with our chicken. And the attention it had for a moment was strictly amateur. Before anyone could collect its wits, our fowl rushed on the red stag with its hackle feathers flaring. In one lunge, it buried its spears in the adversary's breast. The fight was over. The sentencer raised her chicken as token for victory. "Chupe! Chupe! Fix fight!" crowd shouted. Then a riot broke out. People tore their bamboo benches and used them as club. Kiko and I lived through the back door, and I had the chicken in my arms. We ran towards the coconut groves and we kept running until we lost the mob. Until we felt safe, we sat on the ground and rested. We are both panting like dogs. "You know well. Are you convinced that this is a rooster?" Kiko muttered between breaths. "Yes," I answered. I was glad that the whole thing was over. But the chicken has other ideas. It began to quiver, and something round and something hot or wine dropped onto my hand. Then the chicken cackled with laughter, and I looked down and saw an egg. That is the story all about My Brother's Peculiar Chicken by Alejandro Roces.